now let's diagnose where the real opportunities lie in the industrial complexity. So moving to segment two, where the real opportunity lives and what it takes to build there. So let me ask this question to Dr. Sudhin. So you have deployed AI in banks and financial institutions, and now you've been training, um, the industrial clients and process-rich clients in terms of AI deployments. Even to some extent, I believe Gen AI models too, so inside these process-rich environments. So where's the real opportunity hiding inside these process-rich complexity, and what kind of AI models actually work here from what you've seen and built?
Yeah, I mean, we've had tremendous success in banks. I was head of innovation at State Bank of India, where we built our YONO platform for autonomic digital
Mm,
lending. We also transformed the entire core banking, which is the most advanced in the world at 1.5 billion transactions a day, today serving more than 500 million uh, customers and more than 700 million accounts. So we've
mm,
been very, very successful, but keep note of it that, BFSI is now becoming, everything is virtual, right? There's not much of
mm.
physical, when is the last time you went to a branch, right? Or interacted with a relationship manager, right?
Correct. Yes.
So the opportunity for AI, right, and the wrappers, as you rightly mentioned, the native models, the SLMs, is 100x for a manufacturing industrial complexity base, right?
Mm,
Why? Because they are sitting on tons of data, right? And
mm,
for them, it's all these physical assets, right? So some of the use cases that are very, very helpful is the predictive maintenance across all these, because now suddenly manufacturing, smart manufacturing, all these industrial complexes, processes have become mission critical systems, right?
mm, mm,
So it's all the more important for to use the AI. For AI does a very, very a marvelous job at predicting the failure, right? So for predictive
mm,
maintenance, we call it now prescriptive maintenance, where even the AI nudges, recommendations are given along with the prescriptive maintenance. So that's a
mm,
very, very big advantage. All right, so you don't have to go for emergency fixes, which are much more costly. It'll lead to unplanned downtime. All right, so that's one. Then the entire supply chain for the industrial processes, that's a very, very complex piece of it. And ever since COVID, and even before that and after that, the entire supply chain collapsed as a result. I remember some of the automakers could not ship their cars because they didn't have the chips. One of the automakers shipped their cars without the chips and told the customer that when we get the chips, we will figure out, you go to the dealer and we'll fix the chips for you, right? So I think, these are the very, very good use cases where you want to, the entire autonomic vehicles, autonomic robots, autonomic guided vehicles, right, to improve the efficiency. I was just reading that Ford, the US giant automaker, has got to have these robots which can completely, build the entire car in 35 seconds flat, right? And all these, robots are today not updated through a, 3 month fix, right? They're updated on the over the air, right? In real time or near real time, right? So every day the robot itself is learning and adding to the data richness, processing the data richness and doing all this, great work. So I think I believe it's a once in a lifetime opportunity,
mm,
especially
mm.
for the industry, which has done great things in the past, but on the digitization, on the digital 4.0, they can now accelerate their AI journeys using the wrappers and the SLMs and the LLMs and the reasoning and the autonomic decision making, and become very, very successful.
Yeah. So in fact, you mentioned a couple of areas like preventive maintenance could be one area that can be looked at. In fact, I was having a discussion with Vijay Sabarwal some days back. He is also joined here. There was also a conversation where you mentioned, there's a couple of areas that can be also looked at, primarily in terms of, say, product development, or areas in terms of, say, even like when we look at these process-rich industries, you also have a concept of digital twin, wherein digital twin, of course, may be different, but some of these computer vision and digital twin can also be kind of integrated with AI, so as to make the operations um, uh, more, streamlining the entire operations from that perspective.
No, that's a great point, because the sometimes the misconception or the feeling is that AI is only for the technologists and the IT folks, right? And then
Hmm.
they will come to us and then we'll figure it out. No, I think the AI, the Gen AI, all of the deep tech is for the entire organization. We call it AIX, right?
Hmm.
So the new use cases are for R&D, like can
Yeah.
industry make smarter material, right? Can
Hmm.
they build up these hydrogen ecosystems? I mean, the
Hmm.
output of a hydrogen uh, engine is water and water vapor.
Hmm.
That's how beneficial it is to the entire world, especially for a country like India, and we are just uh, you know figuring out how to pay for a higher energy bill, which keeps spiraling up, right?
Yeah.
So I think all these, the manufacturing, the design, the R&D, all
Hmm.
these the quality assurance, all these very, very important pieces of the industrial complex, right?
Hmm.
They can now start building up these SLM models, right? Take a deep dive. I have built up a model for the rattling doors, where I have used AI, quantum, and Fourier transform because each part of the door zone will emit a different frequency, right? The hinge,
Hmm.
the lever, all that. So I think it's AIX, right? And there is not no option. Take the shot. Fail fast if you have to fail. But this is the future, and this is the one way to conquer the world.
Great. You mentioned AIX. So why AIX and why not AI plus?
AIX, the X stands for everything, right? Because and also we are looking at future organizations
Hmm.
which is going to be completely connected, right? The entire organization, for example, previously I worked in General Electric. At our peak, we had more than 700,000 employees worldwide. That was the size of
Hmm.
GE. Even now it must be more than 500,000, right? So here you're going to have a enterprise, a industrial complex where everybody is going to get connected. It's going to be like a neural network where everybody is going to get connected. Every
Hmm.
event, process, function is going to be analyzed, reasoned, and there's going to be decision made on it, which is going to be completely data driven and
Hmm.
data science driven.
Got it. Okay. So now let's move to the. So there's a clarity in terms of the opportunity, but let's move to the timing question. And so, DK, if we look at the industrial sector that has long been considered hard to penetrate, legacy systems, long sales cycles, missing domain expertise, or especially when they kind of interact with, so you might have also seen in your corporate journey, so there's always a requirement that someone, um, the partners who are going to work with the company should have domain expertise too. But at the same time, from India perspective, these are also conservative bias as compared to other players in the market. So what has shifted in the last say 18 months or so that makes this the right moment for AI first founders and IT companies to move decisively into this space?
Yeah. So I think as far as if we had to really look at what is shifting, in my opinion, every element that you talked about is shifting, be it legacy systems, be it the sales cycle. Then you talked about the domain expertise. It is very, very interesting point, and I will bring that into the discussion. And of course, the buyer. A lot of time we think that the buyer is very conventional in Indian context, but I think buyer in every geography is very, very conventional, and things are changing actually in each single element. Let us look at legacy system, for instance. You would have heard a lot about, the Claude model will be able to translate the old COBOL into Java very, very quickly. And suddenly everybody started talking about that. I think it is going to be end for mainframes. But well, there were models or there were translation engines earlier as well, but it did not happen. Okay. In my opinion, these models will be able to translate, but they will not be able to transform. For transformation, there is a much more depth that is required. Okay. I had posted it on LinkedIn that why it is not going to be end of mainframe, and an audience here can actually go there and look at that because it is a longer discussion. But it is not only true for mainframe, but many of the other legacy systems as well. Now, when it comes to the sales cycle for the IT industry and others, the real challenge that I'm seeing today is that knowledge is in abundance. Okay, whatever that you want to put in your proposal or have a discussion with the client and want to research on the particular topic, you can do it within minutes because now you have the models that are able to throw all the knowledge in front of you. But the real difference is, where are we going to bring the differentiation? Okay, the differentiation is going to come with the context. If you do not have the context of the problem that the customer is facing, or their business is facing, and what is the decisions that they want to take, and how does their decision change with each context. If you do not know that, you will not be able to bring the differentiation. Every vendor, every service provider will look the same because they
Yeah.
all are on top of the model on the same knowledge that exists and that is given to everyone in abundance. Okay. Now that context comes from the domain expertise. Okay. Earlier also, this had been a major discussion in the IT companies that how do we bring up the domain expertise to have the right discussion with the client. But I believe it was not expertise at that time, it was domain appreciation. But now there will be real domain expertise required because when we are talking about the business context, we need to understand that, marry it with the technology, and then go in front of that. We can't take just a technology horizontal discussion and say that this is what we know very well. You let us
Yeah.
know the problem and we will be able to provide you the right solution. So we worked from ground zero at that time. That time is over. Now you need to take the experimentation head on and go with that context built into your proof of concept in front of the client and take the discussion from there. So it is not from 0 to 1 discussion now, it is from 1 to n that we had to take it up with the client. Okay. And last but not the least, I think you talked about the conventional buyers. I think buyer behavior is almost everywhere in the same way. It just depends upon that what is the level of investment that they can do in order to take the experiments and bring about the technology into their play. But they
Okay.
have to really look at very, very clearly that now they will need to own much, much more than what they need to be owning earlier. A lot of time customers say that I want to implement ERP. Okay, you guys are the consultant, please come and help me. I don't think that is going to work anymore. If client doesn't know what they need, then they are not going to get what actually is required by their business. And I think this is a big change that is going to happen in the relationships between the buyers and the provider. And the buyers need to know what is my first mile, what is my last mile, and what I need to
Yeah.
do in the middle. And I again posted on that also, because when I'm having that conversation with some of the clients, I'm finding that they have not even done the assessment on their readiness for AI enablement. I call it as
Mm.
AI activation index. Okay.
Mm.
If
Okay.
they have not done that, then that would mean that they are trying to find a shop in the mall without having a map in their hand, without
Mm.
really knowing where they stand. Okay. At the same time, if they don't know last mile, they will be able to implement AI, but they will not be able to put that decision into the action. And that means the
Mm.
end business or end consumer will not get the benefit of artificial intelligence that have been implemented, whether it is an
Mm.
experiment, proof of concept, or other solutions, but they will not be able to get the real benefit. So first mile and the last miles are very, very critical in order for them to define how they succeed with their AI enablement. And I think that is something that is going to be very critical. A lot of systems
Mm.
will be required to be rewritten. Process will require to be rewritten, because they will not remain sequential. They will become more simultaneous processes and probabilistic processes. And if that
Mm.
happens, there's going to be a lot of rewrite that is going to happen on the existing systems that are there with the businesses. So whoever
Yeah.
is thinking that suddenly the jobs will disappear and all that, they are not going to disappear. They will change definitely, but they are not going to disappear, because there is a newer work and different work is going to come into the play.
So you mentioned about a specific assessment, or the gap assessment, which is what is that? I couldn't. So if you could share some more light on that assessment that
Yeah.
you talked about.
So we can go and do, AI readiness assessment for the clients
Readiness assessment, right? Okay.
by
Hmm.
by looking at what do they have. The traditional
Hmm.
approach that we always applied was that we looked at their systems, we looked at their databases, we looked at their infrastructure, we looked at the relationship between each one of those, and tried managing that as a portfolio. But the
Hmm.
new element that has come into the play is the decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody worked from the decision backward. Everybody worked
Hmm.
from the process backward, and that process was static. Okay.
Right.
But when it is decision, we need to look at what is the criticality of the decision, what is the
Hmm.
complexity of the decision. So depending upon the complexity of the decision, if you
Hmm.
put 2 by 2 metrics, okay, complexity of the decision, and then the suitability of the system that is below there, okay, and
Hmm.
if you draw that, then you can really look at where the real opportunity is. Earlier
Hmm.
we were looking at in which industry that opportunity will be there. It will all
Hmm.
depend upon what is the criticality of the decision, what is the complexity of the decision, what business context is changing, what technology context is changing, what data context is changing. All
Yeah.
that needs to be played. And if that
Hmm.
is required, we need to really look at what is ready for us today to be activated for AI. So
Correct.
rather than
Absolutely.
picking any use case and working with that, we need to really look at what is ready for doing that there. Okay. What is ready
Hmm.
for AI, and then work on that. And what is required for making other use cases or other decisions or other processes to be AI enabled. So you need to create a
Correct.
roadmap and then follow that in the middle path in terms of uh, whether developing new systems or changing existing systems. All that is possible, but it has to be in the structured fashion.
Got it. So, in fact, there's very interesting question that has also come. So, it's again from the perspective of AI readiness. So, it's a question from Vijay. Just an observation. What is the kind of investment to be done in IT infra to get the AI going in a manufacturing universe? And if current IT annual expense is X, then X would be what for so-called mid-size manufacturing company? So, how
Yeah,
would you
it
like
is.
to address?
I don't think we need to look at investments perspective to determine how what it would take to do the AI readiness. It really
Hmm.
depends upon that you want to just pick up one thread and start working with that. Okay,
Hmm.
the AI readiness doesn't take too much of time. It may take, let's say, 8 to 10 weeks for a mid-tier company in order for us to really go and study their systems, study their decision process, have discussion with their business folks, bring business and technology on the same page, it may require 8 to 10 weeks to do that. Okay. But more important is that what is the top 3, 4, 5 decisions that you are going to work upon? Let's say that I want to do the forecasting of my sales for the next quarter. And I want to do it in such a way because it is very complex and we have so many products that get developed, so many colors and so many variants. I need to really estimate it correctly, keeping in mind what is the historical data and then how the customer preferences are changing going forward. Now, that may be just one decision. And then we need to look at from decision backward, what are the processes that are impacting it? What are the systems that are impacting it? Where the data is the data complete? Is the data of good quality? That assessment is required for one decision, for example. So we need to look at that. We pick up those decisions. We want to do all together, it can be done. At the same time, if you want to do that in pieces, that can be done in the pieces as well. So both possibilities are there so that you spend money where the real need is rather than spending the money for which you are not even ready today.
Correct. So there's also one more element he talked about, which is the IT infrastructure. So I'm assuming that mid-sized company might have an IT infrastructure already in place. So considering that assumption, what is that IT infra that we can talk about? So Dr. Sudhin, if you can share some light from that perspective.
Yeah. So just on a lighter note, and it's a true note, I have made the largest investment in AI and I have built the largest AI team in the world, and that compromises of me, myself, Sudhin, and AI. That's how large the team is, right? So I think it's not about the investment. I think the infrastructure, you've got a lot of options. You can use the LLMs, you can use clouds, you can use vibe coding tools where you can build these AI applications and then use their cloud. So I think the investment is going to be there, but the trade-off is going to be 100x value addition, economic value add, right? So yes, there is going to be a little risk, but I think with the advent of AI as a service, with the advent of AI models, SLMs, wrappers, that that cost is, so you very smartly use the LLMs for the large scale kind of analysis or the reasoning, and then build your SLMs for deeper dive. In my view, what I've developed and from my experience, the cost of a SLM is probably 1/10 or sometimes even 1/20th the cost of the LLM, right? So this is how you do it. The point is that don't wait, right? We are living in flux worlds, fast, liquid, universal, experimental. So you have to now train your mind. You have to pre-train your mind, just as your GPT, which is a pre-trained transformer model. Everyone in the organization, right? Be it the technical guys, the non-technical guys, the management guys, everybody in the organization has to pre-train their mind as to how to leverage this AI for the big use cases, how to align it with your organization's vision, and just take the shot. My role in these large organizations was just to do innovation and transformation, fail, but fail fast, and take the shot and get it done. That's it. There was no other task I was assigned to.
That is true. So in fact, the cost can start from $20 to anyway to $2,000, but it's not that costly to start.
Is going to be the key.
Just to give you a benchmark, I have built a SLM I've built an entire SLM like a neural network system, right? Like a neural network OS system for an automotive kind of a pilot within $1,000. Within $1,000. That's it.
So yeah, there's a cost that we are talking about. One of the costs that I also read and heard from various founders is the data cost. So as you have more customers or more data consumption, then the cost of data is much higher than the cost of the initial infra. So that is a kind of paradox. So once you start using these models, and if the data consumption is very high, then the data generation and the consumption, that actually takes a lot of your cost.